a martial arts movie podcast.
I threw that shit before I walked in the room.
Featuring drunken Thai boxer Will.
Too bad you will die.
The also drunken wrestler Mark.
I said I don't want trouble.
And drunken karate master Zero.
You've lost your balls.
And now,
I know Kung Fu. You know, baby.
Fists of Fail.
You know, the theme for this month is just comedies, right? That's the theme for this month.
Intentional or not.
Intentional or not, yes.
That's what we kind of agreed upon because we tried to look up So Bad It's Good movies last year, and we had some difficulty finding some because we wanted to kind of laugh at some movies, but we wanted fight choreography we could potentially break down.
Yes.
So that's kind of difficult, actually, when you think about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of already hard to find gems, like the diamonds in the rough, and they have to be martial arts movies, and they have to be, worth talking about. So, we kind of abandoned that. Well, that this year, and we try to go a little bit more broad. But then I just stumbled upon this on Tubi.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did you find this? Was it you just literally...
It was just random, on our search for, martial arts movies in general. It's just sometimes it's just like finding a curated list of other people's recommendations, just going through lists and whatnot. But this was just a random click. I was like, this title sounds stupid. and I can't even remember it. As soon as I'm done saying Fight of Fury, which is the movie we're talking about today, as soon as I'm done saying that title, I already forgot the title.
I've been recalling this entire week when I kept on asking, what movie are we watching again? I kept on getting it wrong, every single time.
Yes. Well, Fight of Fury. This is a movie that I have to question myself, where the hell was this last year?
On 20, yeah. So this came out in 2020.
Yes.
This feels old. This movie feels a little old, considering some certain story points, and we can elaborate on that later. But 2020, where was this? I'm guessing maybe it didn't go on to Tubi until maybe much later, maybe even this year, right? So
maybe I don't think I would have found it anyways. It's just complete luck that I found this movie, and I remember clicking it and watching the first 10 minutes. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I can't watch this alone. I need to watch this in a group. And then unfortunately you and I had to watch it separately, but man, this would have been the ultimate experience because it is up there now. It is on my list of favorite So Bad It's Good movies now. It's not the best, but I'd say it's pretty much top 5 at this point. This movie's a blast. Shuny Bee. Should we talk about him a little bit?
I mean, I don't know too much about him other than that I'm guessing this movie is a personal passion project, most likely funded by him and his students. Maybe he's very obviously a martial arts instructor, and he wanted to make a movie to honor Bruce Lee. I mean, they make that clear in the beginning of the movie as well. They make that clear throughout the film because of the Bruce Lee battle cries that he imitates throughout. And then there are some obvious visual nods. And yeah, this is a man who wanted to make a martial arts movie. And when you have that idea thrown out there into, the cinemaverse or whatever you want to call it, it almost always goes in one direction, right? I don't recall a movie where you hear about somebody saying, oh, this was my personal passion project, and then it's widely accepted and praised as this amazing piece of work.
Yeah, vanity projects usually are laughable just by the very context of, it's like, oh, this is a movie where I am awesome and I am infallible. I am perfect.
Right. Okay. I misspoke. Vanity project. I think I was saying passion project. Yeah. Passion project. Yeah.
Well, it is a passion project. The passion is himself. he loves.
I don't know if I could say that. He's not as narcissistic as I thought this might go in. He's definitely one of those guys that has a philosophy, and he's trying to inject that philosophy into the script. And during key moments in the movie where characters are like, "Oh wow, yeah, that's a great point," even though we couldn't even understand what he was saying.
Yeah. Well, that's not only because of the like the accent that he has. He's Nepalese.
Yeah.
It's more like I legitimately don't know what on earth he's going on about.
Oh God, yes. So, yeah, I would never. I do not like to make fun of people when they have an accent because I have ESL friends. Like, it's such low hanging fruit to just make fun of somebody for their accent and when they're speaking English. When you realize like, oh, they can speak multiple languages. Like, make fun of something else.
Of course. No, we wouldn't punch down. No, of course.
But you do have to realize that when you're starring in a movie and you have this thick accent, giving yourself these philosophical lines to speak and then not even mixing it well so that you have people talking over each other. You have the music swelling above what you're saying. You have sound effects going on. You have other things going on in the background. You can't even understand what he's saying sometimes.
Oh, that's why there comes to a point where you have to turn on the subtitles to understand what he says. And even then, you don't know what on earth he's going on about. It's just random philosophy. Or like sometimes he'll say things that are completely out of context. Like his daughter will say, "Oh, I really miss mom." And then he goes on and says something along the lines of, "If you close your eyes, you will see better than someone with their eyes open." Like, what are you talking about? Like, that has nothing to do with what... Anyways. Let's talk about the story. Zero, do you want to talk about the story?
Oh, God. So, a group of girls gets drugged with cocaine, being put into their wine?
No.
Yeah.
No, you are like really undermining that scene. That scene is amazing.
It is amazing. Well, I'm saying what happens is these girls get drugged, and then taken into sex trafficking. One of these girls escapes. All these men are after her. She stumbles upon the martial arts studio of Shuny Bee, who is named Brandon. Oh, God, is he named Brandon because Bruce Lee's son?
I didn't even draw that connection till now.
I hope that's not the connection.
That's probably what it is.
Anyway. So, she stumbles onto his studio. He protects her by beating up, 30 guys in his studio?
No, it's just like 10 guys, but they keep on repeating them over and over.
Right. So he defeats them, saves his sex trafficking escapee, and then it gets the ball in motion for that. We realize that this girl who escaped has a hard disk that has information about these sex traffickers, which never comes up again.
Never comes back again.
And so they need to go and get her back. And in order to do that, they need to fight with Shuny Bee's character. And then they start going after his daughter in order to kind of get him to come out and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Wow. You basically even tied in parts of the movie that's like the end, essentially. You basically wrapped up the whole film. Super, I wouldn't say simple, but super straight to the point. That drugging scene is so fucking bad. Everything about this movie is just like, it just screams like incompetence, and that's exactly what we eat up. Like it's great.
Oh God, yeah. So that was one of the things I wanted to ask you about. It seems like they are dubbing over all their lines. I'm guessing maybe because, and this is just speculation, maybe they shot with just the onboard recording of the camera. When they went back to put it together, they realized, this audio sounds horrible. Okay, well, how can we do that? Well, I think the only thing you could do is you need to redub all the lines so that they're all clearer. And when you see it, the the voices kind of match the lips, but the acting doesn't match the body movement or maybe what's going on. So it almost sounds like maybe the actors aren't even the ones dubbing their lines. It could well be somebody else, right?
You know, that is so true, and that's it's not. I don't think that's speculation. I'm 100% sure that's true, because there's one scene. It's randomly inserted into the movie where the character the daughter found a dog. It's just a random dog. It has nothing to do with the story. It doesn't progress anything. It just happens to be a dog, and then the father, Shuny Bee, says, "No, you can't keep it." And that's the whole point of the scene. Like that's basically all that is. So, but if you listen, you would tell that dog is dubbed over.
Oh my god!
It's
Yes,
a guy just breathing into the
breathing
mic,
heavy and
pretending to be
panting.
a dog.
Oh
It
god!
doesn't sound anything like what an actual dog sounds like. That's the caliber of movie we're talking about here. And no, I'm pretty sure that's the case, because I don't think they could afford like boom mics or anything of that sort. Like I didn't see a single like arm on screen, like a boom arm on screen. And you can actually see a lot of the camera crew in a lot of this movie, because there's a lot of reflections. There's, sometimes you'll see the camera crew in the car detail. You can see them in mirrors, so many mirrors. And if you really want to hide the fact that you're low budget, don't make everyone wear shades where you can see the reflection of the camera operator inside the glasses themselves. This movie just screams homemade. Like it's a home video. That's what it basically is. It was a home video, and I think they're maybe down the line and during production they're like, maybe we can make some money off of this. And then just
I think he wanted to make a movie. He got his friends together. He got some, he scrounged up some dough. He got some equipment, and they made a film. Mm-hmm. It's not a complete film. And we can elaborate on that later.
Yeah. Well, we can elaborate a little bit now. Just,
no, I don't want to give that away. I think that's just too good to spoil.
Well. I don't think we've done enough justice to explain why this movie's amazing, even though we gave some examples. But this movie, there is a sequel that this movie is trying to gather, right? It's still in the works, and there's a GoFundMe for the movie, and I am 100% going to plug this GoFundMe. I think everyone should contribute to it so we can have a second film.
I would love a second movie of this. I was kind of talking to you about this before, and you and I love bad movies. Part of that is because of the quote unquote incompetent filmmaker, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody who wants to make movies. Maybe there's definitely a passion there. You can't deny that. But in terms of the movie making process, probably not good. Very amateur at best. But that's where a lot of the charm, a lot of the enjoyment comes from it. We're laughing at it, but you're making something very entertaining at the same time.
Yeah.
So there's a give and take there. So, when we were watching Neil Breen's Twisted Pair recently, and
another recommend from us.
Yeah, another high recommend. And I was speculating to you, at this point in his career, does he realize that people are laughing at his movies, not with maybe the enjoyment of what he's making?
Okay, well, I'm gonna say that this is me being a little bit on the hyperbolic side and maybe being a little bit mean. This movie screams McDojo. It's like the McDojo life, kind of persona. Not to be mean to like how it has nothing to do with like traditional martial arts, whatever. It's more like this is like the kind of person that like I think of when I think like they really think that they know the way. They're really like in their own bubble. So I want to assume that, you know, like he's kind of above that. He's like, well, whatever, I made a film and, you know, like it speaks to my philosophy, whatever, I'm just gonna do my own thing. I don't think he's gonna be personally attacked by it. But going back to what you're saying, I don't think this movie has enough exposure, which is why we need to plug the shit out of this movie and get this movie out there.
So just going back a little bit to what I was kind of getting to is that, okay, so, you know, if he were to get a lot more exposure, I mean, not because we're the greatest martial arts movie podcast out there and we have millions of followers, but if he were to suddenly get an influx of money, do you think he would then still be able to make an incompetent film, or would he then look at the reviews and realize like, oh, people think this is a bad movie, that's why they like it? Do I then need to up my filmmaking skills? And then it crashes the movie. It's no longer going to be a so bad it's good movie. It's going to be him trying to make a good movie, right?
Yeah. You can either be a Neil Breen who's like, you know, at this point, I'm sure he knows that people, you know, might be talking badly of his movies, which, you know, like it doesn't really affect him at all. He just continues to churn out crap after crap, even with all the negative publicity. But you could be on that end of the spectrum, or it could be a Tommy Wiseau and like, oh, you made the Room,
fully embrace it. Yeah,
he embraced it, and then after that, it's like he just can't. You can't intentionally be incompetent. That's not how that works.
Yeah, that's because, you know, we love Samurai Cop, and then they tried to make that sequel. I didn't watch it. I kind of don't want to watch it because I don't want to tarnish the first one. But the first one was made by an incompetent filmmaker. All the things aligned for it to be a so bad it's good movie. Yep. When you try to replicate that and try to make so bad it's good, you know it's not really the case, and then things fall apart.
Yep. And that's okay. I think this is all hypothetical. I would love for him to try a second one anyways. Apparently, according to the description of his GoFundMe, that film is already 50% done. But the GoFundMe was created in March of 2021. So it's been, I guess by the time of this recording, it's been a full year. It's only reached, out of a goal of $10,000, it's only reached 900. So I don't think it's anywhere close right now. But you and I, we can make it happen. We just gotta get more listeners.
We could make it happen if Will would do more social media. So I think you guys should nag him to get on that a little more.
All right. Fine. But or the few listeners who are listening right now, you can be very generous. So a little bit more about Shuny Bee before we talk more about the movie itself. I mean, he's according, like, I looked him up a little bit. Seems like he's, you know, like he really big onto Bruce Lee. Obviously, he has a school that's based on like Taekwondo, Jeet Kune Do, and he's done movies before that have also addressed human trafficking. There's actually another movie called Gorka Protector, and the premise is exactly the same, except instead of being in Los Angeles, it's Nepal. But otherwise, it's the same movie. It's about saving young girls from human trafficking from an evil villain.
Right. So I was getting a little worried because one of the kind of character motivation, not even a character motivation, one of the character points that he creates for the character he made in this movie is that he has a wife that he keeps on remembering. His daughter remembers her. They kind of keep talking about it. And there's a emotional moment where he shares what happened to the wife with the new love interest. And we find out that the wife was human trafficked while he was away. You know, serving in Afghanistan, right? It comes across as really silly. But then I started thinking, these vanity projects, I feel that these guys write based off of their real life. And so I was getting a little worried that I wonder if that really happened to his wife. And then now that you're saying there's another story that he's talking about, like that has me really concerned now.
10 years ago? Yeah. It could be, but maybe putting your personal story out and making it a martial arts movie isn't really like out of good taste. If you really have a personal connection to something like this actually happening in his real life, right?
Yeah, well, I kind of spoke about this with the Raging Phoenix episode, where you have these characters who are doing drunken Thai martial arts, which is fun, which is fun and silly at times. But then it turns out they need to save girls being sex trafficked, and they're using drunken boxing and drunken Thai fighting, and then those two things don't mesh well. And so you want to have fun, but then you're like, oh, human trafficking. Oh, it's not, don't do that.
well, yeah. And also there's a disconnect here. It's like, he keeps saying in the movie, his character has a deep connection with human trafficking and it's a terrible thing. Meanwhile, he has a lot of scenes where he's just like on top of this one girl who's like half his age. And it seems like at the same time, it's like there's a disconnect if you're like the movie feels like an excuse for you to be manhandling this woman.
Oh boy, yeah, that's some of that. There's a lot of unintentional humor going on with all the we need to teach women how to protect themselves. Right? The movie opens with him teaching a women's self-defense class.
Yep.
And you have these men on top of these women, like holding them down, and he's just saying, like, do better. This is life or death. Do better.
I hope.
And then these women are like kind of groaning in pain, all in unison. And I just kept thinking, like, oh God, what kind of movie is this? This is horrible.
Exactly. That's the point I'm trying to make. Which is like, if human trafficking is so bad, according to this movie, you really shouldn't be leaning into that kind of imagery so much. But yeah, whatever. I mean, yeah, yes, of course. In terms of the actual fighting. Okay, let's talk about the instruction first. And then, we'll get to the fighting in a bit. Like, he's supposed to be like a great instructor on top of being a great fighter. But man, if he really is, he instructs the same way that he does in this movie as he does in his real life dojo, Bee Martial Arts, which is in California somewhere. I hope that he does a little bit better, because all he does is say, do better. You're going to die if you don't do better. Keep fighting. It's like,
keep fighting,
can you give me a little bit more than that? Like, you need to provide a little bit more advice. Like, oh, this wrist lock isn't working. Why don't you try this? Like, oh, your ankle's like stuck to the floor. You get to do this to get out of the position.
Yeah, that was kind of odd that, it's very clear he's a teacher. I wouldn't want to discredit any of his teachings because I just don't, I never seen it, Could be the world's best martial arts teacher for all we know, but when it comes to putting it on screen, incompetent, because when you see what he's trying to teach, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't look like self-defense.
No, it doesn't.
When he's teaching the sex trafficking escapee girl that he met, he's like, okay, I'm going to teach you a lesson. And that lesson opens up with him kind of aggressively fighting her and kicking her and grabbing her and not explaining the things she needs to know in order to get out of that.
Yes.
That's not teaching. And that's a little infuriating, but it's funny to laugh at because that doesn't make any sense.
Well, if his instruction is anywhere close to his level of fighting, maybe. Okay, well, let me backpedal one step to give him a little bit of slack, okay? Because, yes, I know that this was clearly filmed during the height of COVID, right? If we're looking at the timelines and the fact that we have some scenes where people are wearing masks, like especially the early scene. There's a bunch of dudes are on top of these women in a very distasteful way, and they all have these masks on, and it's like, why is that? Okay, but whatever. So, like, maybe they could do better, given they didn't have the limitations of the pandemic, whatever. But not every trained martial artist makes for good action choreographer. I think that sometimes, like looking at him doing some of the choreography himself, it looks okay. I think he can pull off the moves, but some of the choreography, it's like Samurai Cop bad. It is like they just made that shit up. It
on the
looks
day,
like, on the day of. It's just like just spin that sword around, just make windmills out of it. Like who cares? Like it's just look like you're a threat. And the big problem here is that like we only have a couple trained martial artists on like in the movie, whereas everyone else looks like just a hired person that was part of the a friend or doing a favor for the film. So
I'm assuming that everybody is probably a teacher of his school or a student. Anybody who is an on-screen fighter in this movie. I want to assume that they have some sort of martial arts skill, but that doesn't mean you are a good on-screen fighter.
No.
Just because you can, throw those moves doesn't mean you can do it well for the camera. And I think that's where a lot of the issue is for me, because at times I didn't mind the choreography. It's very simple and straightforward. But then when you think how it's shot, you just have these very boring static camera angles. You have just things in the foreground that are just obstructing the view.
This woman with the phone. She's just on the phone and then in the foreground obstructing the action in the background. You listeners, we're gonna save a lot of the intricacies of the movie in the Patreon section, but I'll at least give you general listeners some context of like what I latched onto with the general fighting. There are huge problems with the continuity in the fights.
Ooh, yeah.
Huge.
That's one of the things I wanted to mention as well. So there's lots of jump cuts.
Yes.
Meaning that when they, cut or when someone edits between one scene and another, it doesn't make sense. It feels abrupt, hence the jump cut. And what Will was saying with continuity is the way the editors stitch together these fight scenes, sometimes things happen out of order.
Yes.
Or sometimes we're missing moments because when we cut from one moment to a next, we'll see people suddenly, oh, look at all these people. They're suddenly in this spot where there's no way they could have ended up there without a scene that's missing where we see people come down the stairs or something like that.
Yeah. Or like someone will be like kicked across the room and then the next cut, that person is holding the person by the hair or something. I was like, wait, what happened? Like, how did he teleport back? So that's actually a really good point. I think the reason why we need to cover bad movies like this every once in a while is because it actually kind of shines a light on what makes good action movies.
Yeah, good choreography.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like you don't know what it is until it's gone, kind of thing, right? So it's like, this is a perfect example where you set up these big hits for placement in the scene, right? So someone's getting sent across the room. Now, he shouldn't be, like, next to you anymore in the next shot. Like, you need to show that, like, oh, he's recoiling, and then we reset. Like, we have to always know where people are in the scene. So, this movie doesn't understand that. And I think that's, like, a big mishap that the movie has, generally speaking. But, yeah, I think that there is some talent physically. I just don't think that, he was able to cobble anything, that actually looks good on screen. And
I wish he had a better cinematographer to capture it, because I think if you have somebody who knows how to shoot fighting, you can take very, very simple choreography and still make it feel good. You know how to cut between the shots. You can make certain hits look more powerful. You can make certain things look faster. There's a lot of things you can do to make a simple fight look better. No. And then when you take away some of those things, you get something like this.
You don't have to do any of that, Zero. All you need to do is just make random noises. just make 3 sounds that sound like Bruce Lee, and just keep repeating that over and over throughout the fight scene.
Yeah, there needs to be some sort of unspoken rule in martial arts movies now that nobody should ever try to do the Bruce Lee noises, just ever. It's gonna, in a serious manner, because it's gonna come across as parody.
Yeah.
It's gonna just make you laugh unintentionally, and he's the only. I mean, he didn't even really do it, from my understanding.
Yeah.
Those older films are the only ones that are gonna get away with it, and then Bruceploitation movies, but you laugh at those.
Yeah. I mean that's. Well, this movie was made under the guise of trying to pay homage to Bruce Lee. Although, I'm going to put it out there, I don't think he actually understands what makes the Bruce Lee movies actually iconic. Or, like, what that yell was even all about. I'm going to save that for the Patreon segment. Like, we're going to break down a specific fight scene that I think, like, is a perfect example of, like, Shuny doesn't actually understand why Bruce made those noises. It's very important to like understand the context of that, and you know, like especially when you're doing a weapons fight, it doesn't make any sense to do those noises. But is there anything else you want to talk about, generally speaking? Because there's so much I want to get into this movie. I have like 9 pages of notes for this movie alone. Normally, I only have like 4.
Oh my god. Well, yeah, so this is going to be a jam-packed episode.
Yep.
We're going to go into it in a lot of detail, not just action. Yeah, if you want to hear more about the movie and you want to hear more about us breaking down these not so good fights, definitely listen to us on Patreon, because we're going to go into it probably for another hour.
Knowing us, yeah, maybe more, because this movie is a blast. A little hard to sit through, and go through frame by frame, but it's important to do this, I think. So we have a litmus test, so we know like this is what not to do in your action movie. So yeah, the Patreon segment starts somewhere around here.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the podcast. We're at the point where we give our recommendations, but there's a whole wealth of audio you would be listening to here if you follow us on Patreon. There you can listen to the entire episode, including an exclusive action breakdown of the fights in the movie. And now on to our final thoughts.
All right, so
is that Fight of Fury?
Yeah, I was gonna see if you remember the title this time. That was Fight of Fury. What a gem!
Oh boy!
It's March now, right? It's March, April.
April.
It's April. This is my favorite movie of the year. Easily.
Oh god, yeah. This was a pleasure to watch. I mean, notoriously, we love So Bad It's Good movies.
Yes,
We're always on the lookout for them. This is a very recent movie from 2020. Mm-hmm. So when you think of So Bad It's Good movies, sometimes you generally think of like the older stuff, like this, like the 80s or this, or even the 90s. Sometimes, like you need the incompetent filmmaker. You need somebody who's sometimes not American born to come over here and make a movie which they think is what
Americans love.
what Americans love or what Americans do, and you realize like, no, that's not what it is at all.
Well, I mean, like I said it earlier before, the reason why I like this movie so much, I mean, I have a lot of reasons, but one of the primary reasons being that it's McDojo life come to life in a movie. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, this is what you expect when like a person who thinks that they're badass and is an awesome martial artist thinks that they can make a movie, represent their martial art on screen. Like this is like the embodiment of that. It's especially with all those scenes where MMA fighters are just begging to be trained by Shuny, and like he's just like he is the answer to all of life's problems because he knows all the philosophy. He wants world peace. All those scenes. But yeah, obviously from a martial arts movie standpoint, it's not good. But I love movies like this because it does shine a light on what not to do if you're going to make your own action scene or fight scene. Like what action design actually is all about. But generally speaking, from a movie making, like an entertainment value thing, I think this movie is very enjoyable. But that's coming from a guy who has no standards when it comes to bad movies. Like I love this shit. I eat it up. Anyone who does not enjoy So Bad It's Good movies will clearly not like this. So, like,
Well, yeah, definitely not.
Yeah. That'll be a hard pass for you guys. But if you can stomach it and you actually want to see, like what we're talking about, I think it's easier to just like go watch this movie and figure it out for yourselves. If you guys listen to us during the Patreon portion, we did go into depth with a lot of the little things that made us laugh. But believe it or not, there's even more, and it's just a sight to behold. I think everyone should watch this movie. That's my high recommend for this movie. Zero. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree too. I love So Bad It's Good movies. That's it's one of my simple pleasures in life. When a film doesn't come together as the person planned, but there's still enjoyment out of it. And it's interesting because some people might say like, oh, you're making fun of the filmmaker, right? But if you think about it, there are films when people put it all together and you watch it and it's just a boring turd. And that is just such a shame because all that work got put into it and it's not entertaining to watch. At least with these So Bad It's Good movies, they put it together and I'm just laughing at it and having enjoyment from it. And even though maybe this isn't what the director intended.
Yeah. I want to at least hope that they had, fun making the movie. Movie making is not easy. Well, I gotta put that out there. It's one of the hardest things you could possibly do. It is project management on steroids. So it's one of the most difficult things you can do. So I don't like to put people down just for the sake of like them actually putting their best foot out there. But sometimes it's just funny. The end result is just funny.
It's hilarious. You've brought joy to my life because of how silly and how questionable and how sometimes stupid the visual choices are. And I love it. I love a So Bad It's Good movie. I love when this stuff comes together and falls apart in front of my eyes. So, please, Shuny, continue to make more films if you can. I would fully support it if you do. And Fight of Fury, is that the name?
Not to be confused with Flight of Fury, which is a Steven Seagal movie.
Oh God! No.
Maybe we should do that next, so we can confuse the listeners. Be like, Wait! I thought they just did that movie. It's like, no, there's an L.
There's an L.